I have a topic today for you that's an important topic, and many people are Googling this topic in Canada. What is the average sentence for someone facing a sexual assault charge in Ontario? Well, that's a pretty loaded question because sexual assault can range from a very minor incident involving, say, a fleeting touch of the buttocks or a fleeting touch of a breast in a bar, right up to the most violent rape, unfortunately, of a underage girl. So I think it's more appropriate to talk about range of sentence. So the court talks about range of sentence for types of sexual activity. So I'll give some examples. So let's talk about that buttock grabbing in a bar, which unfortunately is a common scenario in Canada. That's a sexual assault. A man fondles a girl's buttocks for 4, 5, 6, 10 seconds in a bar. Typically for that type of offense, you're probably facing anywhere from a conditional discharge, which means you would avoid a criminal record, up to a slight possibility of a short jail term. I think in that scenario, you could probably avoid a jail term if you're a first-time offender with no prior record and generally otherwise led a blameless life of good prior history. Got drunk one night and acted stupidly. You might get a suspended sentence, you might get a fine, but sometimes we can get a conditional discharge for that type of offense. If we escalate up breast touching and fondling, I mean, it really depends on the scenario, but you could be facing a jail term for sure in that scenario, depending on the context and depending on, hopefully you have no prior record. Some degree of breast fondling, let's say a range of 1 to 3 months in jail, possibly, with depending on the level of it. Maybe you could avoid a jail term, maybe not, but certainly the courts are thinking about a shorter jail term for that type of offense. And then we escalate. We get up to more serious fondling, digital penetration, for example, or oral sex. Let's talk about digital penetration. I think a person charged with digital penetration, what's the range of sentence in Ontario? Maybe 12 months on the light side, probably 15, 18, up to 2 years less a day just outside the penitentiary. Could you face a penitentiary term of over 2 years? You could, but that's kind of the wide range in Canada. Oral sex, getting a little bit more serious, and it's a pretty serious crime. They all are serious, even the buttock grabbing in a bar is quite serious. Oral sex, you're maybe looking at a penitentiary term of 2 years or more. A very common scenario, unfortunately, is let's call it a date rape involving a person on a date or someone you know. It used to be the range of sentence for that was 2 years in the penitentiary up to 3 years, although there was some cases at 18 months, outlier cases, a very young person, good prior history, youthful, good prospect of rehabilitation. But that range, and maybe probably appropriately, is expanding. I would say it's going to be difficult to get 2 years now in Ontario. The range is probably 2.5 to 3.5 years for that, depending on the nature of the offense and the offender. Maybe even up to 4 with certain judges, but that might be a little harsh. And then, of course, we have much more serious incidents of sexual assault involving sexual assault causing bodily harm. That has a 14-year maximum sentence. A first offender, if there's serious injuries, bodily harm, is certainly going to face, 3.5, 4 years and up, depending on the nature of it. Aggravated sexual assault is where the person during a sexual assault wounds, maims, disfigures, causes very serious injury of the person. These are really heinous crimes and very serious, and judges are going to throw that person in jail for many years. I mean, the range, it's up to a life sentence. I mean, a person could face 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 14 years, depending on the level of severity. And of course, I'm talking about one victim cases. We went through the full spectrum from more minor charges right up to very serious. Now, what's considered the most heinous and aggravated charges, of course, where it's on minors. So you have a man who's sexually assaulting a minor. We have offenses of sexual interference, invitation of sexual touching, and sexual exploitation. First of all, there's mandatory minimums depending on whether it's summary conviction or indictable. But the mandatory minimums are not high. They're 90 days and for summary conviction, if they elect summarily, 1 year for indictable. Believe me, most people charged with those are going to get more than that unless it's the most minor incident you can imagine. So, for example, a crime of stark horror involving a child who, a man, unfortunately, a pedophile, a rape, the person's going to pay, quite rightfully so, many years in jail, like 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 years in jail, depending on the offense. And of course, prior records, there's the jump principle. If a person's got a prior record for this, it jumps up those ranges completely. I'm talking about first-time offenders. Also, if there's multiple victims. So as we escalate up the scale obviously for minors, you're looking at many years in jail for the most serious crimes. But anyway, that's what we speak of in Canada. We talk about range of sentence. There's all this compendium of case law cast across Canada. Each case depends on the facts. So when a client says to me, what am I facing? I have to know the facts. We can't just speak about an average. Of course, Statistics Canada, we could come up with whatever the average is of all those. Maybe it's months in jail if you average the years versus no jail. But that doesn't really answer the question for an individual case. That's what clients want to know. And that's what judges rely on, is all this case law. So as a lawyer, when we go to court, we have to present this case law to the court, argue that this particular offense and this particular offender falls in this range, and then we try and ballpark it within that range. But you can't go outside these ranges. I mean, if you're convicted of sexual intercourse, of forced sexual intercourse, you're going to face years in jail. There's no question about it. And the more serious the crime in terms of more force used, injuries, it's going to escalate those years up. So that's a little primer. I started off by saying averages, but the more appropriate question is, what are the ranges of sentence for different levels of sexual assault involving adult victims and victims under 18? Thank you for watching our video. We are absolutely committed to bringing you the best possible criminal and DUI educational videos. If you found this video helpful, please like it and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you've been charged with a criminal offense in Ontario and require our services, please click on the link in the description below.